Guys, tonight we're doing something a little different. We're going to time travel. Yeah, that old chestnut. But not to some royal court with silken robes and goblets of wine. Nope. We're diving headfirst into the icy, grimy, barely lit world of Viking daily life. Specifically the Longhouse. And trust me, you probably won't survive this. Not because of a battle or a mythical creature, but because basic existence here is an Olympic-level endurance test. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your city and the time down in the comments. I want to know what part of the world is staying up late with me tonight. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. So it starts like this. You arrive in Scandinavia in the middle of winter. It's sometime in the 9th century, give or take a generation, and there's a wind slicing sideways across the fjord that has absolutely no interest in your comfort. You've been dropped off the back of a narrow dragon-headed ship. Elegant, yes, but wildly impractical as a taxi service. And the moment your modern sneakers hit the crunchy, snow-pocked earth, they're soaked through. And not just cold-soaked, like existential cold. The kind of chill that curls up behind your eyes and whispers, "You shouldn't be here." You're trying to orient yourself, but your breath is already misting in front of your face in frantic little puffs. All around you are figures moving in the half-light, bundled in heavy cloaks, fur-lined boots, and expressions that do not suggest welcome. You're the stranger, the outsider, the one who stepped into the past wearing denim and a vague sense of confidence. Bad combo. The Longhouse stands maybe 50 paces away, but it feels like miles. It's hulking, uneven, and weirdly organic, like someone tried to grow a barn out of turf and timber. Smoke curls out from a low vent in the roof, and the sloping walls look as if they've been patched 100 times with whatever was lying around. Planks, driftwood, maybe bits of some unlucky rival clan. As you squelch toward it, you notice the doorway isn't just wood. It's framed with goat skulls. Actual skulls, horns and all. A few of them are charred black. You don't need Google Translate to know that this is not subtle interior decorating. It's a warning. There's no one greeting you. No doorman, no welcome platter of grapes. Just the door slightly ajar, creaking softly in the wind like something from a horror movie that everyone forgets. Ends with the entire cast dying horribly. But you're here for the experience, right? You duck through the low entrance, much lower than you expected, and bam! Your face gets punched by the atmosphere inside. It's like someone lit a campfire in a gym locker, threw in a wet bear rug and added a dash of dying animal for aroma. The Longhouse is warm, sure, but it's the kind of warmth that comes from proximity to other steaming bodies, not central heating. Every breath you take is half ash, half people. You cough, naturally, and 3 heads swivel toward you. One of them is a toddler holding a bone dagger. You nod awkwardly. He doesn't blink. The floor is dirt. Just dirt. Packed down and vaguely sticky in spots where who knows what was spilled or bled or cooked. The light comes from the fire pit that runs down the centre of the room, an open flame kept going 24/7 with logs that hiss and pop like they're offended to be here. There's no chimney, which as you're learning means the smoke has nowhere to go except into your lungs and your eyeballs. It's a slow gas chamber, but with more goat hair floating in it. Your eyes sting, your nose runs, you're already sweating under your hoodie, which now smells like smoked meat and despair. You try to stand still and look harmless, but that just makes you more noticeable. Around you, benches and raised sleeping platforms line the walls, cluttered with fur throws, wooden bowls and the occasional dog. A woman with braided silver hair and an apron that could double as a canvas tent is hacking something unrecognisable with a cleaver. She doesn't stop to ask who you are. She doesn't stop at all. You try not to look directly at what she's chopping. This is not a museum. It's not a reenactment. This is real life, real time, and real Norse people doing what they do best, surviving in a world that actively tries to kill them. Fun fact, Viking longhouses weren't just places to sleep. They were your office, kitchen, workshop, family reunion site and war strategy bunker, all rolled into one smoky rectangle. Dozens of people could live here at once, entire families, multiple generations, plus animals. Yes, actual animals. Chickens, goats, sometimes pigs, depending on the season. They shared the space for warmth. And if you're wondering what that does to the smell, congratulations, you already know. Here's the kicker though. Most historians agree that longhouses were marvels of design for their time. The curved roof, the turf insulation, the central hearth, it all worked. For them. But you, with your TikTok attention span and sensitive sinuses, are currently contemplating lying down and giving up because the air tastes like fireplace ashes and animal sweat. And this is just the foyer. Oh, and quirky fact of the day. The longhouse floor was often used to bury the dead. Like, directly underfoot. So you might literally be standing on someone's great-grandfather, which could explain that cold breeze tickling your ankles even though there are no windows. Debate-wise, archaeologists still argue over how social space was divided. Some think longhouses had strict zones, like men at the high seat, women near the fire, slaves near the door. Others say it was more fluid, based on role and status. But either way, one thing's for sure, you don't rank, not yet. And outside, well, it's not getting any warmer. The storm's picking up, snow is starting to fall sideways, and the door swings shut behind you with a low final thud. Welcome to the long night. You don't know whether to bow, nod, or pretend to disappear, so you do a little of each, which just makes you look like a weird foreigner, which, let's face it, you are. Nobody pays much attention though. A baby cries somewhere in the shadows. Someone near the back lets out a wet, phlegmy cough that echoes like a warning bell. And through it all, the fire crackles in the middle, throwing dancing shadows on the wooden beams overhead. You're still blinking through smoke when a bearded man brushes past you, hauling a sack that reeks of something sharp and meaty. You try not to ask. The longhouse is dim, but not pitch black. Here and there, little oil lamps burn with flickering flames, casting just enough light to trip over. The smell of tallow, thick animal fat used as fuel, adds to the scent cocktail already destroying your modern brain. And speaking of modernity, your sense of time is starting to collapse. You glance around and realise there are no windows, no clocks, no artificial anything. You could be here for 5 minutes or 5 hours. The only real measurement of time is the groaning wind outside and the snoring elder near the back wall. You shuffle farther in, hoping to find some kind of resting spot or, at the very least, a place where no one looks ready to murder you for stepping on their cloak. Eventually, you're waved toward a dark alcove with low wooden walls and a rough fur throw draped over what could generously be called a mattress. It's more of a wooden box, really. A rectangular enclosure just big enough for 2 people to curl up in and pretend they're not slowly freezing to death. Welcome to your bed, or your coffin. The line is pretty blurry here. You sit down carefully, and the entire structure creaks like it's got secrets. The fur smells like something that used to be alive, died tragically, and then came back slightly mouldy. The wood beneath is hard and warped, the kind of surface that encourages permanent hip damage. No pillow, obviously, just a wadded up tunic someone may or may not still want back. You shift and immediately feel the chill of the planks seep through your jeans. So yeah, good luck with sleeping. Oh, and surprise! This cubby isn't private. You're sharing the enclosure with something that huffs in its sleep and smells like hay and wet leather. You peer over and find yourself nose to nose with a goat. A real, living, currently snoring goat. Its name is Snorri, probably. Or maybe that's just the noise it makes. Either way, you're roommates now. This is how people sleep here. Stacked along the longhouse walls in little enclosures, family members jigsawed together under threadbare furs. Privacy's a joke. You sleep. Where there's space, curled around relatives, livestock, and whatever personal gods you pray to for heat. Personal space. Not a thing. At all. You think you can handle it until the goat shifts in its sleep and kicks you in the shin. Hard. You bite your lip and exhale through your nose. You've been here, what, an hour? Let's talk about temperature. See, the longhouse is insulated with turf and built low to trap heat, but it's still freezing. The fire only does so much, especially when the outer walls are basically dirt and prayer. Your hoodie, now damp with smoke and anxiety, is no match for the cold that creeps in through every crack. You find yourself doing that desperate micro-shivering like a car engine trying to start in winter. But everyone else? They're fine. A woman walks by in socks made of wool strips and a tunic that looks like it's older than you, and she doesn't even flinch. You, on the other hand, are 80% goosebumps, and because it's your lucky day, the wind outside suddenly shifts. A burst of air whips through a seam in the wall, and a pile of snow dust lands directly on your exposed neck. You gasp, Snorri snorts, and someone across the fire grunts in your direction like it's your fault for not being made of stone and stoicism. Fun historical tidbit. Viking longhouses weren't just places to live. They were also used for ceremonies, storytelling, council meetings, and whatever else required being inside and not dead. That central fire pit? It was the heart of everything. Meals were cooked there, clothes were dried, gossip was traded, and sometimes, if the weather was bad enough, people just sat and stared into it like they were trying to hypnotise their own misery away. And here's your quirky side note. Sometimes, especially during midwinter festivals like Yule, the Longhouse became a full-blown party zone. Loud music, dancing, mead drinking, feasts that involved questionable parts of animals, all while the wind howled outside. You wouldn't know it from the current grim silence, but this place has seen its share of chaotic joy. Just not tonight. Tonight it's mostly soup smells and passive-aggressive coughing. Now, let's dive into a little scholarly debate. There's still some disagreement over whether longhouses were permanent homes for large extended families or more seasonal communal shelters. Some believe they housed elite families with servants, while others argue they were multi-purpose hubs shared by several households. Archaeological evidence suggests both models existed depending on region and wealth. But whatever the arrangement, the vibe was always the same. Crowded, smoky, loud, and survival-focused. You weren't meant to be comfortable, you were meant to be alive. Back in your cubby, the goat shifts again, and you realise you've lost feeling in your toes. Not like, wow, it's cold, but like, I may never walk normally again. You try tucking your feet under the fur, but that just means pressing them up against Snorri, who isn't thrilled. He glares at you like you've just insulted his ancestors. Around you, the room begins to settle. Voices lower to murmurs. Someone farts, unapologetically. The fire pops. A baby begins to wail, and someone hushes it with the kind of stern whisper that implies they're just as cold, just as tired, and would really appreciate it if the child could stop ruining the illusion of peace. You lie back, eyes open, staring at the low wooden ceiling. There are carvings up there, little notches and symbols, maybe counting days or recording names. Or maybe they're just doodles from a bored teen who lived and died in this room 1,000 years ago. It's a strange comfort knowing someone else once lay in this same spot, staring up, waiting for sleep that wouldn't come, and outside the snow keeps falling. Because of course it does. Morning doesn't arrive so much as seep in, slow, reluctant, and grey. You're not woken by sunlight, because sunlight doesn't really exist here in winter. Instead, it's the sounds. The rhythmic shuffle of boots on packed dirt, the wet coughs echoing off the timber walls, the shriek of some child who has clearly already had a full day of chaos before you even blink open your smoke-crusted eyes. You try to sit up and immediately regret every decision that led you here. Your back is a slab of icy ache. Your mouth tastes like old charcoal, and Snorri the goat is now standing on your thigh like he owns you, which he might. You shuffle out of the box bed, legs creaking, hoodie stinking, socks questionable. The air is marginally brighter, but only in the sense that you can now see more clearly how much grime is clinging to every surface. The fire is still going, but barely. A few tired embers clinging to life. Someone pokes at it with a stick, yawning in Old Norse. You think it's a greeting, so you nod, which they interpret as an invitation to hand you the stick. Suddenly you're fire duty. Welcome to the team. As you fumble your way through reviving the hearth, your stomach lets out a guttural complaint. Right. Food. You haven't eaten since you left the ship, and even then, the seaweed-tasting flatbread didn't count. A woman, possibly in her 30s or 300s, depending on how hard her life's been, ladles something greyish and lumpy from a cauldron that's been hanging over the fire all night. She slaps it into a wooden bowl and shoves it into your hands before walking away, like she's done you a huge favour. You peer into it. Porridge? Maybe. It has the consistency of school glue and smells like salted regret. Still, you're hungry, and this is what breakfast looks like in the Longhouse. No pancakes, no cinnamon rolls, no cold brew, just hot sludge and a piece of dried fish that feels and tastes like it's been stored in someone's boot for a decade. You gnaw at the fish, eyes watering, trying to pretend it's jerky. It is not jerky. It is something else. Next to you, a child, barefoot, snot-faced and fully armed with a small knife, dunks a hunk of the same fish into her porridge and chews like it's a delicacy. You are now the weakest member of this tribe. She knows it. You know it. Snorri definitely knows it. Here's the fun historical reality. Viking food was about as utilitarian as it gets. You ate what you had when you had it. Grains like barley and rye were common, and most meals involved porridge, flatbread, dried meat or fish, and maybe some turnips if you were lucky. Dairy was a staple too. Cheese, butter and something resembling yogurt. But not the creamy stuff you're thinking of. More like tart, curdled survival goo. And while you chew your breakfast/punishment, you learn one vital thing. There is no coffee. You're on day one of caffeine withdrawal, and your body is preparing to sue you. Your temples throb, your eyes twitch, your soul weeps, and there's nothing you can do but sip another spoonful of warm fish mush and pretend to be okay. You sit near the hearth, trying to stay out of the way as the longhouse shifts into full daytime chaos. People step over you like you're furniture. A boy accidentally drops an axe handle on your foot, doesn't even apologise. Someone's braiding their beard with alarming speed and force. A woman is churning something in a barrel that smells faintly like regret and goat milk. And in the middle of it all, people are still eating, still moving, still completely indifferent to your crumbling sense of self. Here's your quirky fact of the day. In Viking times, fermented shark was sometimes considered a delicacy. That's right. Rotted shark meat, buried underground for weeks to ferment, then dug up and eaten at feasts. Not all Viking groups ate it regularly, but it did exist. And if you're wondering how it smells, well, imagine someone left fish in a sauna for a month and then served it at a wedding. You are, thankfully, not offered any. Yet. Across the longhouse, someone calls out in a tone that sounds vaguely annoyed and maybe like your name. You flinch, but nobody seems to care. It's just the start of the day, and people are already gearing up for a full slate of pre-modern misery. Someone's dragging in a bucket of ice to melt, another's skinning a rabbit in the corner with what looks like an oyster shell. A third is already outside, shoveling snow off the roof with a piece of jawbone. You begin to understand. Everything is effort. Nothing happens unless you do it manually, while frozen, and probably while being watched by chickens. There's some academic debate about how communal Viking longhouse meals really were. Some sources suggest everyone sat together and shared, but archaeological digs hint at a more stratified situation, where the wealthier, higher status individuals ate in the best spots and got the better cuts. You're still bottom tier, which means your porridge might have been scraped from the bottom of the cauldron twice. The low hum of conversation returns to the room, people beginning to map out their day. You, meanwhile, are now officially part of the background noise, just another smoke-blurred face at the edge of the hearth. You stand up slowly, knees cracking like old floorboards, and make your way toward the door, thinking maybe you'll get some fresh air. Spoiler, there is no fresh air. You push the heavy wooden plank open and step out into the world. Immediately, the cold punches you in the sinuses like a grudge-holding ghost. The wind screams across the hard-packed snow, flinging flakes into your eyes with Olympic precision. You gasp and inhale a lungful of cold that feels like you just kissed a glacier. Every inch of exposed skin starts to sting. Outside, the land is nothing but white and grey, snow-covered earth, frosty trees, a distant mountain crouched under a bruised sky. You're standing in a landscape that doesn't care whether you survive the day. In fact, it kind of hopes you don't. You shiver, teeth rattling, eyes squinting against the wind. Then you glance back at the longhouse, its smoke curling lazily into the dull sky, and realise, horrifyingly, that it was the cosy part of your day. You stand there for a moment, pretending to enjoy the view, even though every cell in your body is begging you to return to the smoky indoors. The cold here isn't like anything you've ever felt. It's not just cold, it's aggressive. It slides beneath your clothes like a thief and presses into your bones with all the subtlety of a headbutt. Your breath fogs and instantly crystallises on your eyelashes. The wind bites your ears so hard you check to make sure they're still attached. But no one else seems fazed. People are already moving about their morning chores like they were born in this frozen pit of the earth, which, okay, they actually were. To your left, a teen barely older than your cousin is lugging firewood like it's a bag of feathers. To your right, a hunched man with a twisted back and a face like sun-dried leather is hauling a sloshing bucket of something murky from a nearby stream, which you only now realise isn't frozen because it's flowing directly from a natural spring. You don't dare ask what's in the bucket. At this point, the answer is always worse than the mystery. Someone yells at you, or near you. It's hard to tell when everything's in Old Norse, but judging by the way a woman with a shovel is glaring and gesturing at the woodpile, it's clear you're on chore duty. You trudge over, feet stiff in your soaked sneakers, and begin the noble task of moving logs from one pile to another with fingers that have lost all sensation. You think you're doing okay, until the woman comes over, grabs a log and moves it twice as fast without gloves. This, you realise, is your life now. You're not a guest. You're not a tourist. You're an unpaid, unqualified, freezing labourer in the year 850 CE. You blink against the wind, your eyelashes now frosted, and remind yourself this is still technically just the morning. Let's talk chores. In Viking society, there was no such thing as downtime, unless you were dead, drunk, or a king. Everyone pulled their weight, even children. Daily survival took real work. Feeding animals, fetching water, chopping wood, spinning yarn, preserving food, fixing tools, and dealing with whatever nonsense the weather decided to throw at you. Everything was made by hand. You want butter, you churn it. You want clean clothes, you beat them on a rock in a half-frozen river and hope they don't freeze solid before you hang them. You, naturally, are assigned to water-hauling duty next. Why? Because you were standing too close to the wrong person at the wrong time. A shaggy-haired teen with a scar across his eyebrow hands you a wooden yoke with 2 sloshing buckets attached. You lift it onto your shoulders and almost collapse under the weight. He laughs and gestures toward the stream. You sigh and shuffle off, shoulders already screaming. The trek isn't far, but